Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Boardroom Club today to the Unicorn Conference featuring company worth over $100 billion. Today, we are fortunate enough to have none other than Yaron Galai, the co-founder and chairman of Outbrain and a couple of other companies, but we will get to it later on. Yaron, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
And today I'm also joined here by a good friend of mine and also my classmates, Álvaro Jimenez. Álvaro?
Happy to be here, Yossi.
Yeah, so Yaron, the way we have been thinking about it is just like to ask you a few questions about your past experience, your current experience, and maybe later on to have a couple of questions with that submitted in advance from the audience. Sounds good?
Excellent.
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning. It seems like that you've been entrepreneur from very early days. We were just like wondering if you can take us like maybe to some of your first endeavor and what led you to this entrepreneurial path. We know that obviously you're known for Quigo and Outbrain, but before this you're also in Art Forever and a couple of other companies. So yeah, if you can share us some of your experience there.
Sure. So I'll start, maybe I won't go all the way back too many years, but I'll start with my studies. I actually studied industrial product design and never graduated. I thought I was a great student. I thought I should have been graduated with honors, but the university didn't think so. Part of it was that I did start my first startup basically in parallel to studies, and the university really did not like that. And so this was back in 1994, 95, when the internet was just starting, and I basically taught myself how to do websites just by viewing source and trying to code HTML myself. I ended up starting my first company basically was building websites. I built about 40 of the first websites in Israel, 1995-ish. And that led me from one company to the other without getting into the details of all of them. I started 4 companies. I started all of them with the exact same mission or thing that was itching me. Each company ended in a very different place, but the thing I was trying to solve for myself was I love reading, as you can see with some of the books. At the time, my life was very simple with reading in print. I would subscribe to one newspaper, 2 or 3 magazines, and I could finish them all. I had this medical condition that I made up, but I think probably about 20% of our audience have that same medical condition, which I call being a completionist. And so if I'm handed a magazine or a book or recommended one of them, I have to finish it all. And when the internet started, that was a real curse because it's very difficult to finish the internet. And so all the companies I started basically were trying to solve that itch of myself to just try to prioritize what to read, recommend to myself what to read based on similar people.
That's fascinating. My following question was, what was the reason for all your company to actually be in with one common thing, which is recommendation? Was it the reason or was it something else?
That's the passion. That's the itch I've been trying to scratch for myself. It was never about the business aspect of it. I'm very bad with TAM, with addressable markets and figuring out where the business market is going. So with all that, I'm really very, very bad. But I was feeling like if I have a problem, I have too much in front of me to read. It didn't seem like it's personalized or sorted for my personal preferences. And so I thought if that's a problem for me, there must be 3 or 4 other people in the world where it's a problem for them, and I'll just try to solve that problem.
Definitely. Going back to your first like maybe most famous company, Quigo. So you started it back in the dot-com bubble, and I guess it was like very hard to raise money. Can you tell us a bit more about the obstacle that you faced back then and how you managed to pull it through? Because at the end of the day, Quigo was a big success. You sold it for like more than $300 million. And yeah, you can share us more some of the obstacle along the way.
Yeah, so Quigo, ultimately what we did, just for background, is we invented the space that's called today contextual advertising. This is a space that's pretty synonymous with Google's AdSense product. AdSense is actually, just for a bit of history, AdSense was started by a couple of ex-Israeli brothers in California that were building AdSense. We were building Quigo. We didn't know of each other. We were both in garage mode. Both came out just about the same time. Their company was called Applied Semantics. It was very quickly sold to Google. That became, from Applied Semantics AdSense, it became Google AdSense. We continued for 8 years, and ultimately, as Yossi said, we sold the company to AOL for about 400 million in cash, which was a good idea because we did that in 2017 when the world was falling apart. But we did start the company probably in the worst week in the history of humanity to start a startup, which was April of 2000. And it was, we registered, we were garage mode for a few months at that point, but we registered the company, I think about 24 hours after the Alan Greenspan, the head of the Federal Reserve, did his famous speech saying, this is all a bubble, the internet is gonna all pop and go away, and the day after it started. And so that's when we formed the company, and it was, we were talking to VCs that just 2 weeks before were putting insane amounts for that year into companies that we thought were much less interesting. And 2 weeks later, talking to us, they said, we're not investing in any of this. Like, didn't you hear? The internet is gone. It's not happening. There's internet is 1999. It was just a 1999 thing, and we're not investing in any of that. And it took us 4 years to actually raise our proper A round from the VCs. And so during that time, I would call it, and I wouldn't recommend that to anyone here, but it was basically survival mode with begging, borrowing, not stealing, but pretty much everything else from every source we could. I have kind of a book full of how we funded the company for 4 years, but just as one example, we got to, I don't know how, but we got to a family of two brothers that are in the plumbing business in the north of Israel. And we somehow did a $16,000 round. So the entire round was $16,000. That was the amount because that was payroll. So I did a round that just pushed the death of the company by a month. And we did it with the two plumber brothers, and that saved us. Maybe a small funny story later. We never were very good at keeping in touch with our investors, mostly because we felt like, okay, this month we're dying, the company is going out of business, and it's just not that fun to keep in touch with the investors and tell them their investment is most likely gone. And so 7 years passed from raising the round from the plumbing brothers, and we signed the deal to sell the company to AOL for 400 million. And we had, between the signing of the deal and the announcement, we had a couple of weeks just for all the formalities where it wasn't announced yet. And so we decided each of us will call the investors that we brought along, and we had a very full cap table of all kinds of plumbers, etc. And we said, we'll call them and just tell them the great news that in 2 weeks we're going to announce that the company was sold and they're going to get a great return. And so the plumbing brothers were on my list, and I'm getting on a call with them, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the number one best call I ever make in my life, because they invested 16,000, and I think their return was $2.5 million. Pretty good call. Turns out to be a terrible call. So I get to them, we haven't spoken for 7 years. It was two brothers. I got to the brother that was less active on the investment. They kind of forgot about the whole thing. For me, I thought, I'm taking bread off their family's table. So $16,000 to me sounded like, okay, they're not eating this year to fund my company. But it turns out they kind of forgot about the investment. They parked it with their accountant that wasn't sure what to do with it. And then I call and I say, look, next week we're going to wire $2.5 million to your account. I just need the details and all that. And he convinced himself very quickly that it's like those Nigerian scams of I just need the bank account. And it became the worst call ever, like not believing me, you're scamming me, you need to send me things to prove this, send me documents, I don't believe you. So anyway, interesting anecdote on that.
Yeah, but at the end it worked out well for them, and kind of like going as a follow-up to my next question. So you finished up Quigo and you went to Outbrain, but it seems like you actually started to work on Outbrain at the same time. So our question is, when do you know it's the right time to sell the company and maybe start a new adventure, specifically as an entrepreneur? And yeah, if you can take us like to this time when you decided to do Outbrain.
Yeah, so I start companies thinking that this is it. This is the last company I'm going to spend the entirety of my life working on. And so I never plan for exit. To me is an investor term, not an entrepreneur term. And so to me, an exit was never a planned thing. With Quigo, it was a combination of a few things. So for me, on a personal level, again, I started companies to build a content recommendation engine for myself. I just wanted something that understands what's interesting for me and recommends content to me, and then I can sit and read. And my idea to retire entirely was when I have too much great stuff, amazing stuff to read, and I just want to go to the beach and read that. So that was the first thing with Quigo. Was I was feeling the business model really took off and succeeded, which was great on the business side. But for me, in terms of the vision of the thing I was trying to solve for myself, was kind of escaping me. And I wanted to restart with Outbrain and to focus on that vision of content recommendations. The second thing that led us to sell the company was we were starting to feel, we didn't have words for it, we didn't know exactly what's happening, but we started to feel the crisis, what became the real estate and ultimately the banking crisis of 2016, 2017. We started having customers that were growing amazingly well, and then suddenly one day just going down to zero. They were saying the ROI was good, success was good, they loved the product and all that, and just suddenly cut down to almost zero. And it started, especially in the finance and real estate sides, and it started to feel like something is shaky. And so at the time, we were actually on an IPO, a pre-IPO process. IPO process is when the bankers also start talking to each other. And so suddenly, while you're preparing the company to go public, usually you have offers come in because the acquiring companies understand that if you do go public, their window is likely closed for a while. And so we got offers from AOL, from Yahoo, and from private equity. And just between all those, the combination of things, we said maybe something's happening here on the financial world, and maybe we just take our profits and run for the hills. And it was a great call. So again, we sold the company for almost 400 million in cash. If we had taken stock, AOL stock, I think a few months later, it would have been probably worth a quarter or less than that.
And definitely, and maybe going to the IPO actually of Outbrain, at the time when many companies decided to go public by doing SPAC, you decided to go to the traditional IPO of actually doing a roadshow and trying to convince each one of the investors why Outbrain is the right one to go public and etc. Can you tell us why you decided to go for like these paths? And I was like the IPO process as a whole.
Yeah, okay, so we skipped now 12 years or so, but I started, after I sold my previous company, Quigo, I started at Outbrain. Basically, we invented the space of recommendation engines for publishers. We work with the likes of CNN and Sky News and Fox News and all of those. We power basically their newsfeed. including the ads that are in the newsfeed. And so we built the company to a revenue rate of $1 billion a year, and we figured that's the time to go public. This was 2021, and as Yossi's saying, that was the height of SPAC mania. We were having, at the height of it, I'd say 3 or 4 SPACs a week, really chasing us down to try to SPAC with them. So we looked at that, at the whole SPACs, and I do think there's some place for SPACs, not like what happened in 2021, which was insanity, but it was hard for me to understand for an established company that's generating a lot of revenue and profitable and all that. It was hard for me to understand what the advantages of a SPAC are. It was the marketed advantages were the speed to become public. I didn't really see that. I think it was pretty similar to the IPO process. There's the certainty of the deal. With an IPO until the last night, you don't actually know if you're going to be public. With a SPAC, you know upfront that you are, but that's also somewhat true. And on the other side, the SPAC owners aren't doing it for as a nonprofit. They take their 20% of the company or something, so it's pretty expensive. And there's, in some of the SPACs, it was some shady folks, and these become your biggest partners. And so we just thought, for a big company that's selling at about $1 billion a year, that's profitable and all that, we'll take the high road and just do the full IPO. We went public on NASDAQ. It was a wonderful experience. Easier said than done, but I do recommend, if any of you have a shot with your startups or companies you're at, to go public. It was just a wonderful experience.
And you're known for like doing the unexpected thing with all your company around, and kind of like taking me to Teads. It was a sensational deal where you bought like a company that maybe 3 times so-called market cap of Outbrain, but still it's kind of making Outbrain a complete platform with all the video aspects of Teads. So just taking us back to the early days of maybe the negotiation with Teads, how this idea to do this kind of M&A started, and can you share with us some of the journey along the way until the completion
Sure.
of the deal?
Yeah, so we've acquired, I want to say, 7 or 8 companies along the years at Outbrain. And so I think that muscle, and acquisitions are incredibly difficult, and much more difficult even after the acquisition to make them work well. And so we've had about half were not a success, about half worked out really well for us. One of the acquisitions, I'd say, was pivotal for the company. And so we've built that muscle over the years for how to make these acquisitions, make the teams work together well, and all of that. With Teads, and I should say, so we announced the acquisition of Teads for over $1 billion. We announced it a month and a half or so ago. We still have not closed it, so we're still going through regulatory government approvals and all of that in 5 or 6 different countries. And hopefully by the first quarter of next year, we hope to actually close the deal. But it is, as Yossi said, it's a company, depending on what metric you use, there's some where they're similar size to us, but say on profitability, they're about 5 times as big as we are. Market cap, you're right, probably about 3 times as big as we are. So it's a big acquisition for us, or we like to think of it as really a merger of 2 equal companies. For us, it was, look, we went public in part so that we have a currency that we can use for mergers and acquisitions. The market has not given us what we think is the value that we deserve. Our market cap is very low. But we thought, after 3 years of being public, if Wall Street investors aren't seeing the value, we'll leverage that currency in different ways, and M&A is a big way to go about it. So this for us is a huge pivotal deal. Obviously, I hope it succeeds, but if it does, it shoots us to become probably the biggest or one of the biggest in our space on the open web. So outside of Google and Facebook, we'd be up there in that league, generating almost $2 billion in revenue every year and being very profitable. And so for us, it was just the financial Wall Street piece of this. And the second was just looking at the roadmap of where we're going. We always like to try to think of a 3-4 year roadmap of where we think the market is going to go and then lead and innovate in that direction. And Teads for us was sitting on many of those themes. Video advertising, everything that has to do with vertical video, with what we're seeing with TikTok now, which is another product announcement we made last week, and with connected TVs, which is really all about video, things like Apple TV and Roku, and Teads are big players in that whole video space, and so that was the other justification.
That's fascinating, and I have actually a few more questions, but we are short on time, so I will pass the mic to Álvaro.
Okay.
Álvaro, floor is yours.
Thank you, Yossi. So, Yaron, actually, what you just mentioned, I had no idea that this was even a sector. And then this summer, I spent it in Harvard Business School, and the apartment had a TV that was a Samsung TV, and it was full of ads. And it was exactly the model that you've been describing. So when you set up Outbrain, you're already in an industry that has a lot of success, that is huge, with giants like Google and Yahoo. And so how do you say, okay, I'm going to start a company that is going to compete with these huge monsters that then later on even bigger companies like Microsoft penetrate into this market?
Yeah, so when we founded Outbrain, Google was definitely the biggest competitor, and shortly after Facebook and others. I thought, without getting too inside baseball, I was looking at just the advertising specific part of this, and I was thinking the entire world has dogmas of how they think about optimizing advertising, which I think there's a game to play, which is exactly the opposite to it. And just the short version of it is Google and everyone, and my previous company, Quigo, we were all very good at making advertising auctions that were optimized on price. So with Google and anyone else, all the advertisers put their bids for how much they're willing to pay for an ad to show, and then the highest bids are the ads that get served. Now, as I said before, I've always been obsessed with building recommendation engines and recommending content that might be interesting for me, and embedding ads in it because you need to make a living somehow. But I was thinking about myself, and I don't know about all the audience, but I have a feeling I've never actually read an article or entered a newspaper or something like that and looked at an ad and say, oh my God, that ad is $1.27. That's delightful. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I've never said that to myself. And so there's this whole industry that's all optimizing for price, yet as a user, I couldn't care less about the price. And so my thinking was, I know that 80 cents is lower than $1.27. I know that. I'm not a big mathematician. I don't have a degree, but I know 80 cents is less than $1.27. But if the user experience is actually good and I come back and consume that twice, that will generate for the publisher $1.60. That's more than $1.27, yet it's not optimizing for price, but rather for the user experience. And that was the angle I thought we'd take with Outbrain. And in that sense, when you have giant players like Google and everyone that's all in one kind of machinery, it's so difficult to almost impossible for them to change dogma just because their business is giant. They're kind of locked to their giant business. And so I thought that's a great opportunity to invent a new space where just because they're so big will be very difficult for them to play in.
And then what you mentioned earlier, when you purchase a company is because it's something that can add to you. However, I must have imagined that over the past years, since you had created a new space, you must have had a bunch of these bigger companies knock on your door and say, hey, would you be interested in the sale? As a founder, why did you decide in 2017, now is the right time to sell a prior company? And now with Outbrain, when would you consider?
Yeah, so first of all, as a CEO, so I wear multiple hats. I have the founder hat. I just want to build my company and build a great product forever. Then I have my CEO hat, and especially once you take investor money, I have a fiduciary duty to look at any serious offer that we get for return for my shareholders. And so that we've done over the years. Obviously, I think any company and any interesting company will get a bunch of offers. So we've done that, but nothing excited me and my board enough to actually pursue. I think at any given moment, you have to basically compare two potential routes. It's the kind of bird in the hand versus two birds in the tree route. And if those birds in the tree feel like they're achievable, and over time we can get them, then that's how to compare the acquisitions. In 2017, those two birds in the tree were starting to look pretty tricky because of those advertisers that were dropping off, and we felt something in the financial system was not very stable. And so at that point, we said, okay, bird in hand. But over the 17 years of building Outbrain, we've never had that kind of excitement from that path. And
so valuing success at the end of the day is what we're talking about is very complicated, and not always the market reflects that. So how would you measure success in Outbrain? What is you mentioned you've done in your experience a lot of acquisitions with other companies. Now this huge merger with Teads. What can you tell us about measuring success in an entrepreneurial path like yours?
yeah, so at this point we're publicly traded. NASDAQ, Wall Street has very clear measures of success. I'd call them basically two buckets. One is these years EBITDA profitability is one of them. Didn't used to be that way a few years ago, but now profitability really matters. The second is always true for a public company, which is just basically saying what you're going to do and then do what you said. So that's predictability of the results is very important. But that's very different for me from the entrepreneurial days of the company. And to me, the only reason startups can succeed, really no reason at all that a startup will succeed. It's lacking resources and any market position and all that. And any big company that wants to do something a startup does should probably beat it. The only reason a startup can succeed is really insane focus on doing something very specific, doing it better than anyone else in the world, and just sticking to that focus. I think focus is just incredibly important. And to me, I explained what the thesis was when we embarked with Outbrain. And then the focus for us became on, we were talking to publishers like CNNs of the world and telling them, for advertising, you do Google. Google is where you maximize the pricing of ads and all that. And we just want the swampland, which is the end of the article. Publishers were not selling advertising there. It's a terrible place for ads. No one wants it. We're telling them that's a great place for where the person gets to the end of the article and they sort of want to flip the page of the magazine to the next article. And let us power that. We'll do one link or two links, two of your links, CNN, and then one ad link, and just let us manage that. And just by intense focus on those KPIs and the user KPIs, not the price of the ad, but rather are people engaging, or are they coming back tomorrow? All those KPIs became our kind of, you can see all my lighthouses. That's how we like to call it. Lighthouse here is the lighthouse of the company is the KPI that we optimize for. And we were just kind of maniacally focused on those KPIs, user KPIs.
Thank you. Now, before I move to the final section, I have just another question, just because I read a very interesting article related to fake news and fake ads. And Outbrain actually had a very interesting way of tackling this issue. Now that we're having AI, it's going to become a huge problem. And it's interesting that an advertising company or company like yours would be dealing with this. Usually you don't think about this. You think about news outlets that are, not reputable. What about advertising? How does Outbrain tackle this issue?
Yeah, so I think we were the pioneers of identifying what fake news is. We named it fake content, not fake news, and we're very, very public about it. This is, I want to say, about 6 years, so around 2010, so about 6 years before it became a thing with the 2016 election and Facebook and all the fake news there. One of our salespeople, Kate, came to me and said, some of our top accounts that are spending with us, something's fishy. I feel like something's not right there. And these were newspapers, so we were looking at them. These were newspapers advertising with us. And I told her, Kate, if something's fishy, go and take a look. And we spent about 2 weeks investigating. And we found that what they were doing was making a facade that looks like a real newspaper. And then once you enter anything under that facade, it was all basically fake news that was built usually to promote all kinds of products and scams and things like that. It's like some of these newspapers solved Alzheimer's, for example. It's incredible. The solution for the Alzheimer's they can only give you if by email, if you give them your email, and it's free. They'll solve your Alzheimer's for free, but they need to hold on to your credit card for that email, and then they'll solve Alzheimer's for you. And it's a bunch of these businesses where probably 8 years later, when the person has passed away, the children are going over the estate and saying, "What the hell was Grandpa, paying $9 a month for the past 7 years?" And it's the Alzheimer's solution that was free. And so as soon as we found that, we started investigating all the advertisers. And again, what we were optimizing for was not how much money we can get from each ad, but rather, are we serving the consumer well? And so to me, it was very clear, these are not serving the consumers well. These are scams. And so I called the board the same day. I told them our sales rep has found that problem and that we're cutting all of them. That was over a quarter of the company's revenue at the time. So I took down, in one night, we took down the revenue for the company by a quarter. And the following week, we went very public with some journalists and all that, calling it fake content, but basically explaining what fake news is. And we did it so that other competitors in the space are aware and also don't take that. Sadly, a bunch of our competitors thanked us for letting go of all the business and actively took those customers. But that was another differentiation in the market between what you stand for. And so for us, it's just we serve the user above all else, and anything that's fake news shouldn't have any place in the world.
It's very, very good to hear that advertising actually has a moral side to it, So with that, I'm going to the last section of the interview where we have a little bit unusual questions. We have a bunch of students in this call from various universities, and many of them are looking to be entrepreneurs. Many of them are looking to pivot in their careers. So for those thinking about their startups, is there one piece of advice that you can give them before they begin with that journey?
Yeah, so I have first of all, the best piece of advice I actually have on my screen here. I can try to share. I stole it from another great entrepreneur. Here, I think I can. So this would be my number one only advice I'd actually advise following. I'll share it for a second. So
your advice would only work for another internet-based advertising company, right?
Even not that. I think everyone's path is so specific and advice is so generic and non-personalized, where I'd listen to advice. I definitely would keep my ears open, but then be selective, because I've seen geniuses in their space in entrepreneurship or so give the exact opposite advice. Like, I have 5 CEOs that are older and more experienced than me and did a similar route to me, but earlier. And I'll sometimes, when I'm stuck on stuff, I'll ping the 5 of them and ask for advice. And these are, the people I cherry picked over my career as being the smartest in their space. And sometimes with the same level of confidence, they'll give the exact opposite advice. And so that would be my first one. But the ones, first one is startups are crazy. It's the crazy roller coaster, and it's insanity. And it's hard to survive, 8-10 years of a startup, which is what it takes to build real value, if you're not very passionate for the thing, not for the money. I think startups empirically are probably a terrible way to make a normal living. If you take it statistically, with all the startups that fail and all that, probably taking a job at a big company or McKinsey or something is probably a better way to make a living. And so I think the worst motivation for starting a startup is, I want to make a lot of money. That's it usually won't hold for more than a year or so until things become insane. I think if it's around a passion of something that you really want to see the world change for you, that's probably very valuable. I'd say my second piece of advice on that is, as soon as you find that thing that you want to change the world for the better, I would just run and do it. I think it's not that you can't start startups later in life and later in the career. It's definitely doable, but it becomes much harder. It's the benefit of more experience, and I'll just do one job here just for experience, and I'll do more studying and just for experience and all that, versus the ability to do it when you have less sitting on your shoulders in life, I think is not worth it. So I just run quickly.
All right. So you've told us now what you think about doing this again, but let's say that you weren't an entrepreneur. What would you do for a living?
So I've never not been an entrepreneur, which I've never written my resume yet. I'd love to actually catch up on some studying, which I might have studied astronomy. That would be interesting for me. But if not, I have been dabbling with doing kind of my reserve service, a few years of public work. I think especially now in Israel, I think we need some good public servants, and so that might be it.
That brings me to my last question then. So, okay, you've already done a bunch of companies, you've sold them, you made a bunch of money. Now, what are you doing in 10 years? What is it that you think is the next thing for someone that has already been successful in their career and by then you probably have read and studied a lot more than what you told us. So in 10 years from now, what would you do?
My imagination might be very limited, so this might be just that issue, but I think I'd probably be on my next startup, which is what I think I would do. It's to me, it's I saw a year or two ago, I saw the Rolling Stones at a concert, which is incredible, and I think Mick Jagger is around 80, almost 80. And I think he has plenty money to retire. I think if you think of each album as almost a startup, he's had plenty of exits. And yet I think there's the joy of creation, the joy of music, and doing another album, another concert. And so to me, a little it would be similar to that, and just build. I love gathering a great team together, thinking of a problem that the world seems to be not focused on, and see how we can create a great solution for it. So that to me seems like the fun thing to do. It's an insane roller coaster, but that's besides the point.
It sounds like a lot of fun. If not, you wouldn't be doing it, right?
Right, exactly.
All right, Yaron. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. This has been great. Yossi, back to you.
Yeah, so Yaron, that's been a blast, really. Just like hearing all your advice to all the maybe future entrepreneurs here in the audience. So we super appreciate you just like being here with us and accepting our invitation initially. So thank you very much. And for everybody else in the call, so tune in. We have another call actually on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. with Asaf Peled from Minute Media, and then I think Wednesday with SolarEdge new CEO. So tune in and we'll be fun as well. Thank you again, Yaron.
Thank you.